Women educators are natural givers, pouring into their students, their families, and communities. But what about pouring into you? This is the Educator Sanctuary, where we help you ditch the guilt and unapologetically put yourself at the top of your list. I'm Dr. Leah, educator, mindset coach, and your guide to creating a life where you align with your purpose and reclaim your power. So if you're ready to set boundaries and step fully into the woman you're meant to be, you're definitely in the right place. Let's get into it. Hey, and welcome back to the Educator Sanctuary. I'm getting actually so used to this, and I'm getting excited about being here literally every week. If you are new here, welcome to this space where we dive deep into the mindset shifts, personal growth, and the intentional actions that help us show up as our highest and best selves. Today, we are talking about small steps, those seemingly tiny actions that we often overlook, but that can lead to huge changes over time. And I cannot wait to get into it. Whether you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, or like you just don't have enough time to make any real progress in your life, this episode is for you. A lot of us get caught up into thinking that we need to have everything figured out before we take action. But here's the truth. Big transformations, y'all. Big transformations always start with small steps. And it really doesn't matter what it is. Think about it. We don't work out if we can't commit to 5 or 6 days a week. I actually coached so many women, and this was one of the biggest reasons that they would what they call fall off the wagon. In their minds, they committed to 5 or 6 days a week. They had not been working out any. And it was like if they missed one day at the gym, and then they missed the next day at the gym, then the whole week was typically a wrap. We skipped meal prep if we didn't get to carve out time on a Saturday. We scrapped the business idea if we were not able to build the whole thing at one time. If any of this sounds familiar, you are not alone, and I completely get it. Whether your excuse is that you don't have the time or you don't have all the pieces to the puzzle, the reality is this. You'll never, ever have it all figured out, and you'll never find the perfect time. It is always you holding you back. And the truth is, while it is super hard to take that first step if the path isn't clear for you, I am living proof that you don't need to make a big leap to make things happen. It's really all about starting with the smallest steps that you can, and then the momentum will eventually follow. But I did not learn that immediately. I too took the long, scenic route to where I am today. So I used to be this queen of overthinking, and I'm pretty sure that came from some deep-rooted subconscious stuff, but we're going to leave that where it is for today. But if I couldn't see the whole picture in my head, meaning like if I can't conceptualize everything at once, then I would just shut down. Like, I cannot do this. I remember being in one of my classes when I was getting my master's degree, and the professor at that time stated that we were going to do a project. And I asked her what the project was, and she said that she was going to give the project to us one step at a time. I remember sitting in that class thinking, I'm about to fail, because how am I going to plan out my project? How am I going to plan how I'm going to get my A if I don't know every step of the process? So I raised my hand and I said, excuse me, professor, this plan isn't going to work. I feel like you're attempting to set us up for failure, because however can we do a project that we don't know anything about? And she said, you will know all the steps you need to know when it's time. I almost cried that night because the reality of it was for me is that I'm so used to planning out every single step that it's like I can't even take the first one if I don't know where the last one is going to be. And that pretty much sums up how I have done everything my entire life. I need to sit down and I need to write out the plan. I need to have a plan A and I need to have a plan B and I need to have a plan C. But basically, I'm getting to my goal and I'm going to write out all the possible routes to get there. So it was very scary for me not to be able to see the entire puzzle, right? So there's no preview. When you look at the puzzle box, there was no preview of the picture that was going to be at the end. It pretty much mentally paralyzed me. I did that for everything. Sometimes, depending on what it was, I wouldn't take any action, even on the things that I knew how to start, because I was scared that I would hit a point where I wouldn't know what to do next. But something shifted in me a few years ago. I remember listening to a business owner. Her name is Jerisha Hawk. And I was listening to one of her lives on social media. And something she said in that live hit me hard and it sticks with me even today. She said, imperfect action is always better than perfect inaction. That resonated with me so well because I thought about how I spent years of my life literally focusing on making sure that everything was perfect before I would move forward. Or I thought about how much time I spent on things, and sometimes longer than I probably should have, because I wanted every single detail to be so perfect. And I put so much time and attention into it to watch it fail, to watch my family and friends not support me. And that probably discouraged me more than making a mistake and then fixing it along the way, than making sure that it was perfect for no one to ever pay attention to it. So when she said those words, it was like, wow, this is probably the game-changing strategy that I actually needed to move forward. Since then, I have been rewiring my brain to be able to take action even when it's uncomfortable. And let me tell you that it is the most liberating thing. Now, in the beginning, it was super tough, especially when I was attempting to avoid doing things that weren't necessarily perfect. It was very tough on me mentally and emotionally to keep moving, knowing that something wasn't quite like I might have wanted it. But I committed to not letting myself veer off into a rabbit hole of, let me get this perfect. But it's, you know what? This is not perfect. So let me highlight this. I will come back to this, but let me move on to something else. When I tell you that it helped me move 10 times quicker, that was really one of the best things that someone could have ever said. More than that, I actually learned that once I took action, even when I was unsure about what the action would lead to, it was almost like the universe met me where I was, whether it was somebody offering me guidance, whether it was a video showing me the next step, or even just a thought that popped in my head that I couldn't think of before. It only and always happened after I started moving. Things started opening up for me when I got out of my own way. And it made me think really like, so you know how you watch babies and they learn to walk? They don't come out knowing how to walk. They've never done it before. And the funny thing is, while we have never taught them fear, somehow they're always innately afraid to fall. But we stand them up on their 2 feet and we move over to another side of the room and we encourage them. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. And the baby's sitting there looking at you like, no, I can't. I've never done this before. I don't even know what to do. and they're standing there and they're staggering and they probably feel like they're about to fall, but we still encourage them every step of the way. Even if they take 2 steps before falling, we don't shame them for falling. We say, okay, good job. Get back up. Come on. You could do it. Yes. And you're literally celebrating every step, even if they fail. We tell babies, don't quit, but we don't give ourselves the same grace. I feel like we need to go back to having the mindset of a baby, taking the 2 steps, falling, celebrating those 2 steps anyway, right? And then getting up again, maybe the next time we take 4, then 6 the next time. And before we know it, we're walking, and we're walking permanently, and we're confident, and we're getting across the room, and we're making strides. And now we're not walking anymore. Now we're getting into running. It's time to be a baby, and it's your turn to walk again. So someone told me the other day that I did not give homework in all of my episodes. And I said, well, that's not true. I give homework all the time. And she said, no, you don't. And I'm like, yes, it's in every episode. And I realized that the homework may or may not have been missed because I have said action steps in some of the episodes. So I'm going back to homework. Here's your homework for the week. I want you to think about one thing that you know that God has given you to birth. One thing that you have been sitting on, waiting for the perfect moment to start. One thing that you have been sitting on, waiting for some miraculous person to fall out of the sky and give you the blueprint to creating it. One thing that you have been sitting on because you're fearful that no one will support you. Your homework is to write down your fears. Write down what's holding you back and what you're afraid of. And once you get that down, step number 2 is to ask yourself, what is the worst thing that can happen if you actually took the step? For example, if you want to start a business, but you don't know how to write a business plan, what's going to be the worst thing that can happen because you don't know how to write a business plan? Once you're done with that, then the next step would be, what are those possible solutions to those fears? Could you find a mentor? Could you take a course? Could you pay someone completely to just do it for you and just give them your ideas? And the reason why this works is because you, one, began to see that the fear is bigger in your mind than it is in reality, but also coming up with a solution before the problem helps you move through the problem quicker. This is always something that I did when I had my fitness clients, is I would ask them, like, hey, what are you fearful of not committing to this week? And what are the reasons that you don't commit normally? And what solutions can you use to counteract those barriers that you already know that's going to come up, right? Because now what it does is take the excuse away. So number 1 was write down your fears. What's holding you back? What are you afraid of? Number 2 is asking yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen if you take that step? Number 3, write down those possible resolutions to those fears that will help you move through quicker once you get to that step. Now, step number 4 is to write down the biggest possible outcomes, meaning if you actually did that thing that God has birthed in you, if you actually launched the business, if you actually wrote the book, if you actually made the change, what's the absolute best thing that could happen? Compare the worst and the best. And then ask yourself, are you willing to invest in the fear which probably is not as bad as it seems? Or do you want to invest in your best possible outcome? Now, here is the biggest question. I want you to analyze every single thing and then write down, what will it cost you if you never do it? Is it going to cost you your livelihood? Is it going to cost you your purpose? Is it going to cost you your legacy? Is it going to cost your family's future? Because I believe that once you actually see what it's costing you to stay still, you will realize that taking even the smallest step forward will become worth it to you. This week is a week that you're going to sit down and get real with yourself. This week is the week that I really want you to sit with these questions and do the work, because the life you want, that dream that you're holding on to, it's absolutely not going to build itself. But one small step at a time, you can absolutely get there. And I know I say this all the time, but this is absolutely true. I really want to hear about the steps that you took this week. Please send me a message on Instagram. Let me know what step you're taking this week. Let's hold each other accountable to moving forward, no matter how small the step. And then head on over to YouTube, where you can listen to the confidence affirmations that I have up there to be able to reaffirm yourself, to reprogram your mindset, to fill you up with that positivity that you need to say, yes, I can do it. So let's hold each other accountable to moving forward, no matter how small the step. It's really about taking the step forward. That's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helps you. And until next time, take the step, do the work, and watch what happens. Thank you for joining me in the Educator Sanctuary, where we create a space for women educators to reclaim their power and prioritize themselves unapologetically. If you've loved what you've heard, please do not forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with other amazing women who need to hear this message. Until next time, remember, you are capable, you are powerful, and you are absolutely worthy. You've got this. Talk soon.